One of the earliest questions we grapple with in a modern chemistry classroom is exactly what is an atom? When we say an atom, and maybe from a previous course you know that there are protons, neutrons, and electrons within the atom, and even within that there are smaller particles. But think back to the ancient Greeks. The ancient Greeks didn't have the benefit of the scientific method, and yet they coined this term, an atom. To illustrate this, we have a very simple activity. There's no write-up needed for this. This is just a thought experiment. It's really a philosophical experiment. I'm going to ask you to take a lump of clay, or it could be anything that you could divide. You could take a piece of fruit if you wanted, but clay is nice in that it's easy to manipulate. And let's say I'm going to take this clay and I'm going to break it into two smaller pieces. And then let's say I set aside one of those smaller pieces and I break what remains into two smaller pieces. Set one of those aside. I'm going to break what remains into two smaller pieces. I'll set one of them aside. Keep breaking. Setting little pieces aside. My lump of clay is getting smaller, smaller, and smaller. You know, it's gotten to a point now where I want to set it on my clipboard. I set a small piece of clay on the clipboard, and I'm going to use my box cutter here. You could use any kind of a knife. And let's say I'm going to divide that in half. Set half of it aside. And then I divide that in half. And then I divide that in half. Until eventually, students, well, I have an equipment limitation. You know, I can only divide so much with this little box cutter. I could only manipulate at so fine of a scale with my fingers. But philosophically, let me ask you this question. What if there wasn't an equipment limitation? What if you could have really, really, really fine tools? Infinitely fine tools. Just how small could you get that piece of clay? Would there be any stopping point at which you say, hey, you can't get any smaller than this? Well, the Greeks defined the word atom as that which can't be cut. That's literally what the word atom means. The negative prefix a in front means you can't do something, like an amoral decision is one that's not moral. When atom is something that can't be cut. T-O-M is a root that means a slice or a cut of something. So that which can't be cut, that's an atom, according to the Greek definition.